since it meant his death and that of his immediate family.
That mystery remains unsolved to this very day. However, I'm hoping to solve some of the mysteries surrounding Moreton in Marsh when I meet local author Mark Turner, chronicler of Cotswold folklore and mythology. He's waiting for me right now here at the very haunted White Hart Royal Hotel.
So, Mark, I think we've established that the Cotswolds are a pretty haunted sort of area. Just how haunted are they?
Very haunted indeed. I've amassed a large collection of stories from all around the district: Chipping Campden, Stow-on-the-Wold, Moreton itself, various other villages, lesser known ones. A really substantial number of stories that I think suggest the Cotswolds is amongst the most haunted areas in the country.
Mm-hmm. And the very sort of epicentre of all that haunting is Moreton in Marsh itself. I mean, is it fair to say that Moreton is probably the ghost capital of the Cotswolds?
You could put it like that. Moreton is very haunted indeed. I've got quite a number of stories that I've collected there, and no doubt there will be more forthcoming before too long.
Mm-hmm. And the White Hart Hotel itself?
Yes, the White Hart Hotel, where we're seated at the moment, is probably amongst the town's most haunted buildings. And indeed, you could do a lot worse than speak to the owner and licensee, Mr. Robert Steen, who can give you his own experiences.
So, Robert, the reputation of the White Hart Royal Hotel is that it's a haunted place, but that reputation's built around 2 rooms specifically here, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, room 7's the first of those. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, we hear from many guests over different occasions, whether they're staying with us for one night or more, that occasionally, usually in 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, very late in the night, that guests would hear people upstairs moving furniture, walking around the room to make cups of tea, opening wardrobes and changing clothes, taking off shoes and kicking them around, stories like this. And in the morning when they come to complain about it, we listen to it respectfully, but then we probably would take the guest outside, show them the bedroom window where they've been staying, and show them that above that bedroom window, there's nothing. There's no room above the room number 7. But there are stories that this used to be accommodation years and years and years ago, and it was probably used for accommodation 350 years ago, but certainly not in the last 100 years. It's now just a storeroom with Christmas baubles and presents.
Right. So you got room 7, which is people who like ghosts will want to stay there, people who won't will definitely not want to stay there. And which is the other room that's notoriously haunted?
Room number 21, which is slightly newer, and this is probably about 100 years later on when it was built. And there are stories there of doors opening and closing for no reason. We had a honeymoon couple staying there one night, and their night was terribly fraught. They hardly slept at all on their honeymoon because there was a ghost in the room. The husband, in fact, at one stage decided he'd talk to the ghost to try and get it to go away, or at least to make peace and be friendly, because his wife could get no sleep at all with all the noise of the doors and the drawers.
Do we know what this ghost looks like?
No, I've heard from 1 or 2 people that it's a lady dressed in white, and just she sits at the end of the bed and will go into the cupboards and what have you, but apart from that, that's all I know of her.
Well, Mark, that's the White Hart. Where else around Moreton, then, is good for ghost spotting?
One of the best-known stories in the town is the local hospital, which was built and opened in 1873. The first matron there was Miss Rebecca Horn, and there are numerous stories passed down over the years about how she still haunts the building to this day. She's been seen by a number of the sisters that still work there, and apparitions and strange poltergeist activity have been occurring for quite a long time.
So what sort of things does she do, then? Does she just sort of turn up and wave at people and go away again, or does she interact at all?
None of the staff have ever been aware that she responds to the sighting of her, but she's been seen to pass through walls and appear out of the blue, as it were. She's also accompanied sometimes by 2 white cats, which traditionally are associated with her. It's believed she kept these pets in the building.
Well, there's one thing that's for sure about the ghosts or the spectral goings-on in Moreton in Marsh, is that the spooks nearby and around about say, all seem to quite like a drop of drink, don't they? Because there's yet another haunted hotel around here.
There is, the Manor House Hotel, just up the road from the present building we're in. This has got long associations and traditions with hauntings, notably by Dame Creswick, a former occupant of the building until, I believe, 1752. Her ghostly spirit has been seen on numerous occasions by both staff and guests, as recently as 1987. On that occasion, she was followed by a member of the public in the street, walking from East Street, just down the road, up towards the Manor House Hotel. They saw a lady with a long, flowing, old-fashioned dress walking in front of them. Their attention was drawn to this. They thought it looked peculiar. Suddenly, without warning, the figure turned and vanished, walking straight through a wall nearby.
Sudden or violent death is often something that gives rise to haunting, and certainly stories of ghostly sightings and so on. And I believe that the Fire Service College in Moreton-in-Marsh, in a way, is a product of that. I mean, in its past, it was something else, wasn't it?
That's right. The ground on which the fire college is presently situated was formerly an RAF aerodrome of World War II, used for the training of Wellington bomber crews. Prior to that even, it was a golf course where there is a ghost story. But in the aerodrome time, obviously a lot of pilots and crews met their deaths at a very young age as a result of air crashes. And there are various associations of ghosts there. These have carried on now to the present day Fire College Training Centre, and there are stories of poltergeist activity and apparitions.
What form do they take?
Presently, the apparitions are of modern day people, but prior to that, the apparitions seen are of airmen, and one chap even claims to have seen a bomber taking off near the fire college.
Back to boozing, which is a thing, as I say, the Moreton ghosts seem to enjoy doing. Do tell us that there's a fantastic story in your book about sort of Fred the Friendly Poltergeist.
Oh yes, Fred the Friendly Poltergeist. He lives at the Black Bear Inn, again in Morton's High Street. His activities have been carrying on now for 10 or 15 years at least. They're pretty much confined to moving bottles about, mischievous stuff like throwing lampshades across rooms, tipping stuff over, footsteps pacing up and down. Some staff have been perturbed by it in the past, but it's so well known amongst employees that they really smile at his activities now.
So do we know who Fred was?
Well, no, we don't. I've also researched Morton's history as well as the ghostly side of it, and found that there are a number of licensees I've traced there, but none actually known as Fred. So it's a moniker we seem to have attached to him for affectionate reasons.
So is there some specific reason, do you think, why Moreton-in-Marsh maybe attracts all this, if you like, ghostly activity? I mean, do the ghosts just like to kind of be together and be one large happy family, or is it just pure coincidence?
It's a good question to which I couldn't really give an authoritative answer. There's not a particularly turbulent history and past to Moreton. No great tragedies that we know of. What is the reason? It's on the boundary of 4 counties, but that shouldn't really play a major role. Well, I suggest that probably a lot of the towns and villages in the Cotswolds are equally haunted. It's just that I've unearthed more stories here, and if I were to do the same in neighbouring towns, I might well come up with just as many.
Minster Lovell Hall, on the edge of the Cotswolds, was once the home of the ancient and venerable Lovell family, who provide a widely told local legend known as the story of the mistletoe bough. One Christmas, so the story goes, a party was held at the hall to celebrate the wedding of William Lovell and his innocent young bride. As midnight approached, a game of hide-and-seek was suggested, with Lovell's bride challenging her husband to be the first to find her. After she'd been gone for a while, the hunt began, and continued, and continued. No sign could be found of the missing wife. In desperation, Lovell and his guests turned the hall upside down, but the girl had apparently vanished into thin air. The rumour spread that she'd run off with a lover, and unable to bear life without her, William Lovell eventually died of a broken heart. Years later, an old chest was discovered in an attic at the hall, and, when it was opened, was found to contain a female skeleton. Lovell's bride had not run off at all, merely hid herself too well and become trapped when the lid of the trunk slammed shut on her. Even today, it's claimed, William Lovell's desperate sobs and cries can be heard echoing around the ruins of Minster Lovell. No trip to the Cotswolds is really complete without a visit to a site absolutely loaded with legend and mythology, the Rollright Stones in Oxfordshire. There are 3 principal sites at Rollright, a stone circle dating from about 2500 BC, known as the King's Men. At the far end of the adjacent field, there's a group of large stones known as the Whispering Knights. And just across the road, a giant monolith known as the King Stone. Once upon a time, as it might have been, an ancient king stopped off at Rollright on his way to conquer the whole of England. There he encountered an old witch. Some say it was the famous soothsayer Mother Shipton. Maybe so. Whoever it was, she learned of the king's ambitions, and she set him a challenge. She said to him, 7 long strides thou shalt take, and if Long Compton thou can see, King of England thou shalt be. With unfailing enthusiasm, the king strode out, replying, "Stick, stock, stone, as King of England I shall be known." But as he took the 7th and final stride, a mound of earth rose up before him, obscuring the view of Long Compton in the valley below. The witch then came back and said, "As Long Compton thou canst not see, King of England thou shalt not be. Rise up, stick, and stand still, stone, for King of England thou shalt be none. Thou and thy men whorestones shall be, and I myself an eldern tree." And in that instant the king and his men were turned to stone, as were a small group of knights who were huddled together, some say conspiratorially, some say quite innocently in prayer. Whatever, if you let your imagination run riot, you can clearly see that they are leaning together, either plotting or praying.
Next week at the same time, Gary Rice takes us on a haunted tour of the West Country.
From the ghettos to the death camps, the children of camp survivors tell their family history.
Mountains of eyeglasses and suitcases. My mother's shoes, my father's shoes. Mountains and mountains of hair.
But even after ultimate survival, the legacy of the camps lingers on.
We might be in the car driving along and she might hear, or think she hears, Nazis in the next car, usually threatening to take her children away from her.
Out of the Ashes. Time Watch, tonight at 9 on BBC Two.
Tony Blair flies back from Brussels, but here at Westminster, the Conservatives have a fight on their hands. They could lose control of parliamentary business. The National Lottery's been in hot water too. And Paddy Ashdown explains how MPs should keep out of trouble. Join me in 5 minutes.
This is BBC Two. Now the news at 3 o'clock with Andrew Harvey.
Of male bonding looks set for